I am excited to introduce our first group, Donna Massey, Leslie Wooten, and Karen Washington. Oh, we have some nice pictures up here. Yay! And Ted Duggan. So thank you all very much. Retention, the student's point of view, which I'm excited to hear about because we talked about everybody's point of view except for our students when it comes to retention.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you're here. You want to be where you can see troubles are all the same. Sing along. You want to be where everybody knows your name.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We hope you find our presentation informative and entertaining. We have some things, little surprises for you along the way. As we go through our presentation, we'll each come up here, introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about ourselves, and then dive into our part of the presentation. So, to get things started, I am Donna Massey. I was born and raised here in Tallahassee. Never lived anywhere else. I've traveled other places. I was actually here at TCC before there was a TCC. We used to come out here to Appleyard Drive, and we would shoot off my brother's model rockets, and then of course my sister and I would have to go run them down because after the parachute deploys, it drifts a long way. So we were actually out here before the school itself. And that was not the end of my association with TCC, obviously. After I graduated from a local high school, I came out here and took 2 years and got my AA degree, and then I went over to FSU where I got my bachelor's. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I actually came back to TCC, you cannot get rid of me, and got a certificate in data processing. Went back over to FSU, and during that time while I was working on my master's, I was also teaching as an adjunct here and as a graduate student over at FSU. And then I went off to the non-academic world because you have to make a living. And then after about 18 and a half years with the same company, I came back to TCC. I never go away permanently, so I came back as an adjunct again, and I wore them down until they actually hired me, so that's always good. So, you're probably wondering why I'm telling you all that, and there are 2 reasons for that. One of the factors that we're going to discuss with retention from our students' point of view is self-disclosure. That's having an instructor tell his or her students a little bit about themselves so that they're not the big evil creature in the front of the room and they can relate to them a little bit more. There's another reason. We're going to get to that in just a second. We are talking about retention. And retention is a huge item. It has many layers, many facets. Sometimes when the marketing people get someone here to the school, you have to hang on to the student long enough to get them to live through the first class, not scare them away. And then they have to keep coming back all semester, or they have to come back next semester. We went even bigger than that. Just go big or go home. And we did. So, we were talking about retention until the end of their academic goal here at TCC. Are they just coming here to get their AA or AS and go over to a 4-year college? Are they just coming here to do a few classes and then transfer? Are they coming here for a certificate or some stackable certificates? Actually, this is why I am the case study, I'm the end product, because I did all 3 things. So, when we were assigned our group last semester, we tried to figure out what we wanted to work on. It was very easy for us. It was quick and easy. We had gone to NISOD in the summer, and we heard lots of different presentations. A few of them really stood out, the presenters and the presentations. One of them was a Dr. Neil Raceman, and he was talking about retention in terms of customer service. So, I know that a lot of academic folks shy away from the idea of customer service because they think of when you sit down at a restaurant, you're getting served, they talk nicely to you, and they want a tip. Well, it's not quite the same thing when you're talking about your students. They want you to treat them with respect. They want you to smile at them, treat them like you are someone here that you want to have around. You want to be at a place where everybody knows your name. When we started with our idea, we came up with an initial survey document. We gave some open-ended questions to our students, and they were very thoughtful, and they gave us great feedback. We said, if you were going to have something influence you in terms of staying until your academic goal is met, what could the instructors do to help you with that? And then the second aspect was, what could the school as a whole do to help you stay until you've made your academic goal? And then we used these answers to create a second survey instrument, because you can look at the data and figure out what everybody else is saying, but we wanted to know what our students were saying. And we used the top 8 or 9 factors that they came up with in terms of the instructor, and then the top 8 or 9 that they came up with in terms of the college as a whole, so that we could survey last semester students and this semester students in terms of what they thought was important. So we gave them a scale of very important, somewhat important, neutral, all the way on down, the Likert scale. Then we also ended up with a last open-ended question one more time, and this they could put in anything else they like, and we will talk about what they were saying, and you will like some of the answers they gave. Some might even surprise you. We did it on Blackboard, so I learned something new. You can teach an old dog a new trick. Once we got our numbers back, we were crunching them, of course. We will hear about the crunching of the numbers so you can see what the students thought was important in various aspects of retention, whether it's from the instructor or from the school as a whole. And we're going to tell you all about that. Before we dive into what we did for our surveys and what answers we got back, there's always a bunch of literature about retention. Like I said, it is a huge deal. And we just took one little aspect of it. To cover the literature review, I will turn that over to Ted.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, literature review. Why this is important. My name is Ted Duggan. I'm a political scientist in the History and Social Sciences department. The challenge of most community colleges, we shouldn't really candy coat the data. It shows a very low retention rate for students. So this is a very large issue. The graduation rate for community colleges is less than 25%. And one of the difficulties that we've experienced in our daily lives is that we're dealing with some very vulnerable students. And the literature discusses all of these different groups. Community colleges deal with first-generation students whose parents did not go to college, minority students who are not highly represented in graduates, low-income students, and then, of course, underprepared students as well. The literature also talks about the fact that online students have lower graduation rates than students that attend classes. So we have our work cut out for us with the community colleges. So most of the literature touched on the fact that community colleges have a lower retention level, and they deal with some of the most vulnerable populations in the colleges and universities. And so one of the things that we can do is just realize that many of these populations are looking at all of the other students in the classroom and thinking to themselves, well, I don't really fit in, and so I'm going to remain quiet here and just pretend like I fit in. And so there's this feeling of being an imposter in the classroom. And so a lot of the literature you would expect it to be just very harsh and analytical. A lot of the literature talks about validating your students and giving them sort of kind feedback. And this is especially important because these students, in many cases, are feeling like they really shouldn't be here. Even when they are successful, of course, you know that you feel like an imposter regardless of how successful you are. So feedback from your professor holds a lot of value for these vulnerable groups. So, of course, no lit review would be complete without Shakespeare. Of course, Hamlet is talking to Polonius, and the players come to Denmark or come to the castle, and Hamlet says to Polonius, you know, you must bestow these players. And Polonius says, well, I will use them according to their deserts. And Hamlet says, God's bodkin, much better. And he says, use every man after his desert, and who shall escape whipping? Use them after your own honor and dignity. The less they deserve, the more merit is in your bounty. And I think that no other statement for me really kind of held my philosophy on teaching as much as this particular statement from Hamlet. So Donna talked about the fact that every student wants to attend Cheers University, and we played the theme song for Cheers, where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. So Reisman talks a lot about the fact that students want to be known by name, and that taking attendance for students is very important. A welcoming environment for students where they are recognized and encouraged leads to higher retention. So that's the main, one of the main themes of the literature, as well as Reisman touches on that very strongly. And a lot of the perception about retention is that maybe we don't necessarily need to try to bring all of the students through. That perhaps if we just put more bodies into the classroom and sort of weed people out, then that will be good for the college. And of course, we don't take that attitude at TCC, but you would be surprised at many universities and community colleges, that's the attitude. And Reisman really works against that conception. He says that in order to recruit students, you need to do advertising and enrollment and advising, and that costs about $5,460, according to one survey that was taken in 2010. I'm sure that it's more than that now. And so this dropping out of students also, the students don't necessarily drop out and never go through school. In many cases, if the school doesn't embrace them, they'll go to another school. There's so much competition that is out there. So this attitude of, well, I'm just going to be a tough teacher and weed out, take the chaff from the wheat, is really what we're kind of working against in this presentation. So attendance, of course, is extremely important. We put into place the starfish system, and I think that a lot of the professors are getting used to taking attendance, and Reisman really emphasizes this. He talks to a lot of administrators, and there's kind of a pushback against taking attendance in the classroom, but he shows that that's extremely important. And in the student surveys, we saw that it was important. One student said, the worst thing that you can do to get yourself into a hole is just to stop coming to classes. I mean, and you know, you've seen that in your own classrooms. If students stop showing up, they'll normally drop the class. So keeping them in the classroom throughout the semester. There's also retention increases with early alerts and monitoring attendance as well. This is, of course, Bill Law, who's the president at St. Petersburg Community College, and he put into place their own alert system. And he talks about that in many of his publications. He focused on retention. And I think that the starfish system is really a step in the right direction as far as retention goes. The other literature as well emphasizes that the students who continue to show up to their classes will generally get through to graduation. So they need goal-oriented advising. Lacking a goal or major leads to lower graduation rates. So we've been working on this at TCC with getting students to actually declare their meta majors, as well as kind of advising them that they need to find a profession at some point in TCC. Students will often drop out after the first year. So students receive advising when they come into TCC, but a lot of the literature shows that there are what's called near-bees, people that are near to graduation. They have taken a lot of classes, but they've taken classes in a very sort of willy-nilly fashion. So they have just maybe a couple more classes, but then they'll drop out before that takes place. So the literature really addresses the fact that students need to be advised not only at the beginning of their career at TCC, but also later on so that they can actually, transfer or choose a profession. So of course, the beginning literature in the early 1990s really emphasized the community feeling, having cohorts, classes where students will take multiple classes, all with the same group of people, club activities, music, choir, all of these things lead students to be around other community college students so that they're all moving in the same direction. So community was emphasized in a lot of the literature as well. The academic focus, according to the literature, said that reading and math is really at the core of all retention. So reading is the most important determinant of college success. According to one study by Feige, said that those students who had passed a reading developmental education class were actually much more likely to get all the way through. He said that that was the most important determinant. Another large determinant is how soon do students take their math classes. And I think that we've been emphasizing this a lot at TCC with advising, is don't wait to take your math classes. You're going to lose the information that you received in high school if you put off your math classes till the end of your community college experience. So students should be advised to take math early. But the most important thing is that the critical role of faculty. So most students at TCC plan on transferring to a university and in many cases work part-time. So they take a real no-nonsense approach to classes. And I think a lot of people who are teaching have a misconception about what is customer service within the classroom. We didn't find that students wanted necessarily better grades. That wasn't the focus for what they wanted. So we shouldn't confuse customer service with grade inflation. But again and again within the student comments, we found that students wanted to learn something every day in the classroom. One student said, I pay for my classes and I expect to learn something new in each and every one of my courses. And so I think that the idea of customer service is not foreign to the academic environment. And I think that professors will often take on more importance at a community college because there are a lot of commuting students, and so we don't necessarily have as much activities for them as a university environment. In many cases, the students are coming directly here from their home, and so we, as faculty, in many cases, will be the main person that students will look to provide a welcoming environment to the students. And so it is a great deal of responsibility that we hold as faculty. So that is it for the literature review. I give you Leslie Wooten.
Okay, I'm Leslie Wooten from the Division of Natural Sciences, and I'm going to talk to you about the data that we received. I'm not sure that you actually have the handout, but there should have been a handout for you that showed you exactly what the questions that we gave to the students. Like Donna told you, we did have a preliminary survey that we gave to the students, and then we had a secondary one that we sent out by Blackboard. Over 2 semesters, we were very excited that we had over 500 students to respond to our survey. And in it, we had all kinds of meta majors, and we had all kinds of ages, and just the gamut was just run of what types of students that we had. But most of our students were either not employed or currently working part-time. And in the first part, we asked, what could us as faculty members do for you? And we got some very specific answers. So this is in percentage to show you what they thought was important. And in the darker blue is very important, and the lighter blue was what they found to be somewhat important. Timely feedback was important to over 90% of our students. Letting them know what their grade is in the course right now, getting their grades back for their tests very quickly. Customer service, we've already explained what customer service would be in the classroom. Getting one-on-one help when they need it was another thing that was almost at 100% for the students. And then providing encouragement when they need it. That was both in the classroom and then in one-on-one environment. Another thing that they showed up as showing as important to the students was hands-on learning at certain times in the classroom. Then additionally, which may not be as important as we were looking at, oh, these are all 90% and this is so important. However, over 60% of the students found self-disclosure of the professor to be important. Letting them know, hey, this is how I made it through. You can do it too. Everybody has a difficult time getting through college, and hearing our story does help them as they're getting through. The numbers for orientation to the value of TCC, that number seems a little low. I'm sure that you're kind of going, wow, I would have thought that would have been higher. However, I think that I may be the problem for that, and so I apologize. The problem is that I teach a microbiology class. And 4 of the classes that were polled were my microbiology class, and those students are about to go to nursing school, and they're in dental hygiene. They already know the value of TCC. They don't need any more orientation than they already have. So the numbers for my classes were lower, but I think that's because they already know. Some feedback that they gave us in the, excuse me, in the free responses that they could give were very good advice for us, letting us know that we should keep the grades current, let them know where they stand in the class, and being approachable to them and available at all times, and then realizing something that's very difficult for us a lot of times, and that is we're teaching all different kinds of students who learn in all different kinds of ways. And sometimes it's hard for us to reach out to someone who is a visual learner if we're not. But we have to reach all different types of students. And also just being excited about our subject does a lot and goes a long way. The next part was to ask, what can TCC as an institution do for you to keep you here at the college? Offering courses at a convenient time, of course, with almost 100% of the students said that that was important. Getting a high academic quality where the classes were comparable to those offered at FSU and at FAMU. Customer service in financial aid and in academic advising. Feeling that the institution cares about them and is involved. Getting weekend hours at the Learning Commons was also very important to 80% of the students that we polled. Having additional advising staff available at peak times was about 90% of the students. Having an up-to-date website was very important to the students so that they could easily go to the website, find out important dates and times where they could meet with people, when advising was going to occur, when TCC to FSU advising was going to happen. And then streamlining financial aid was about 90% of the students wanted to have improvements in financial aid. We did get a lot of feedback about financial aid. Mostly it was about disbursement and when disbursement would happen. And that was said over and over again in our free response section. Additionally, students wanted to have evening hours available at the library and weekend hours. And then about 3/4 of the students wanted to have the Star Metro bus service reinstated. Excuse me. And they were very specific when they got to the free response section. Those students who decided to take the time to leave a free response, most of them who did left a response about the bus service. And some of them were very particular in what they said. And some of the statements are up here, that they needed the bus service so that they could get here for classes, that they couldn't afford to pay for a car or insurance, and they listed out how much everything costs, and they were very specific, and they could do most of the math for it, and I was impressed. The last group that we had some feedback from was from the parents, and they wanted to have some interactions for them, maybe some clubs or organizations for the parents, so that they could interact with one another and have some support where they would feel accepted, and that maybe that would bring more students that would be parents into TCC because they sort of feel left out a lot of times, and they thought that that would be helpful. I'm going to hand it off to Karen. She's going to give us a little bit of a wrap-up.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Washington. Please bear with me, I'm losing my voice. To wrap it up, the biggest takeaway for the college: don't cut services. Our study revealed that our students were negatively impacted by the cutting of the Learning Commons hours and by Star Metro. We should focus on meeting or exceeding student expectations. We need to take a customer service approach. What can we do to help our students? What do you need? How can we help you to be successful? And give students clear directions on problem solving. So try to help them as much as we can. And if we can't, find someone that can help them. Also, we should solicit feedback from our students annually, because students need change. So we should survey them at least once a year to find out, what else do you need? Again, what can we do to help you to be successful? And treat students with dignity and respect. In other words, treat them the way that you would want to be treated. If your children or your family members were attending TCC, I'm sure that you'd want them to have the best. So think about your students in the same way. And get involved. We should focus on creating student and faculty-focused groups that improve customer service. Look at the annual surveys. Try to come up with strategies to help our students. Focus on being available, providing one-on-one interactions with them, providing timely services, and building relationships. The biggest takeaway for instructors: we need to be passionate about teaching. We should create our lessons and activities and projects that are exciting and engaging. Get students to care about your course. We have to tell them why the course is relevant to them as a student, why the assignments, the projects, the activities that they are going to complete will help them. And show students that you care about them and your course. So I think that we should, interact with students in the classroom as well as outside the classroom. Attend their games, the basketball games, go to the shows, the theater shows that they put on for us. And last but not least, we should give timely answers to student questions and regular feedback on their progress. I think as instructors, we should aim to provide our students with weekly feedback. so that they know how they're doing in our courses. And that feedback can be used as a motivator, because when they log into their gradebook each week, they'll be motivated to continue to do well when they see that the great grades that they're getting in their course. And also for those that are in blissful denial, when they see those zeros piling up, that will motivate them to get to work. That's it.
Okay, so in conclusion, I just wanted to share with you some of the fantastic things so we can end on a very positive note to let you know how great we're doing. We got some excellent feedback on our free responses about what wonderful professors that we have and what a great place this is. And the kids do want to graduate, but they do want to come back and visit. And they did say that you're not getting rid of me anytime soon. I did like that one. But they did mention that they knew that the responsibility was theirs to stay in class and to finish their degree or certificate here. And that it wasn't up to TCC, it was up to them. However, with that being said, there is a part that's up to us to encourage them from the first day that they set foot here at freshman orientation until the day that they leave with that tapping gown on and we can be so proud of them. We want to encourage them every day in between and let them come to our office during our office hours so that we can encourage them every day, and then come see us next week and come see us next semester. And our president gave us a very good quote from his blog and about leaving our doors open, always having open doors so that even after they've graduated, they can always know that they can come back to a place where our doors are open, where everybody knows your name, and they can always be glad that they came back to visit.